Welcome, friends. It's nighttime here, and I'm getting ready to head off to bed. But before I can do that, I want to share with you how the IBLP uses their principle of suffering to manipulate women like Anna Duggar. It's highly likely Anna is spending her time in the warehouse on the Duggars' property praying, hoping she can somehow understand God's divine path for her life, believing with all her might that her suffering is purposeful and one day she will be rewarded in heaven. Hey guys, if you can, take a chance to subscribe to my channel, like this video, or leave a comment because supposedly it helps my videos get seen by more people. Here is a cute kid with his foster kitten. Thank you so much. Anna Duggar and her sisters were raised in a homeschool where they stayed home and read the IBLP's wisdom booklets every day. As far as I can understand, these booklets focused heavily on moral principles instead of basic mathematical concepts or literature. For the first 16 years of Anna's life, she relied heavily on these books to teach her about the world outside of her parents' trailer. One of the fundamental principles taught by the IBLP is the principle of suffering. And I believe it has a lot to do with Anna's mindset during the crisis in her marriage and family as a result of Josh's terrible behavior. The principle of suffering states the following: God lets bad things happen because suffering is good. According to the IBLP, we live in a world that is marred by sin, so difficulties and disappointments are bound to cross our path. Nevertheless, if you ask God for discernment, you can begin to understand why He allowed something to occur. By praying, Anna can discover how God can redeem this situation with Josh and bring benefits into her life as a result of the suffering He designed for her.
As we think about suffering, I want you to remember where I'm getting my information from, and I always want to give credit to whom credit is due. If you've never been to an Institute of Basic Youth Conflicts by Bill Gothard, I would urge you at some point in your life to go to one. What we learned in a week, I'm trying to teach you over self. But as we think about suffering, I want you to think about Jesus and having the power of Christ in your life. How many of you want Jesus' power in your life? You want life-changing power? We all do, don't we? And if we want Christ's power, you're going to have to first accept His suffering. I don't know if you remember what He did when He came to the earth. What did He come to do? He came to die, didn't He? And He came to die for us. And the Bible says, I am not a person that likes to suffer, I'll be honest with you. I don't want it, I don't like it, I don't look for it, I run from it. And you all do, correct? But how many of you have suffered a little bit in the last year? In some way? Some of you we know about, sometimes you suffer silently, you don't know things that you're going through. But I know this: if you're going to walk with Christ, you're going to have to understand the fact that when you're called into the Christian walk and the Christian life, there's going to be some suffering. Because Jesus suffered. And we're going to have to learn to accept the suffering He went through if we're going to go through life and not get bitter. If we're going to go through life and have a life of forgiveness like Jesus had, and be able to forgive others the things they've done to us, we're going to have to understand and accept His suffering.
IBLP says all pain and suffering are a result of three primary things: our fallen nature, what we do, and what others do to us. Anna has been told she must accept God's grace to deal with the suffering being brought into her life by the actions of her husband. If she doesn't, she's been taught she will inevitably become bitter. Anna believes God will not allow anything to happen to her without His permission, and He will not let any bad thing happen that will not ultimately bring her more good than unhappiness. So, when Josh was arrested and eventually convicted of CP crimes, Anna went home and started telling herself it was ultimately God's choice to allow this to happen, that there is some reason or lesson He is providing to her through this tribulation. IBLP says that even after a woman like Anna has been saved, she still needs to continue to develop her faith, trust, and total dependence upon God. One of the ways God can accomplish this is by allowing tests and trials into Anna's life to remind her that she needs him every day. If she submits to him through each one of these experiences, not only will he give her grace to get through it, but she will also be able to glorify his name by trusting him completely. So it's kind of like God gives you a shitty life when he knows that it will bring you closer to him. This sounds a little bit abusive to me, right? He humbles you to make you less of a jerk, I guess. But he still gets to be kind of a jerk, it seems, because he keeps giving you all of these trials and tribulations until you turn yourself over completely to him. Look, guys, I can kind of get this. In my own life, I've been through some shit that was really hard. While I was going through it, I felt terrible, and I frequently asked myself and others around me why it was happening. I had a hard time staying positive. But most recently in my life, I've seen clearly how those trials and tribulations helped me grow, changed my path in a good way, and led me to the positive place I'm in right now. So again, I get it. The IBLP's self-help stuff can be kind of on target with how many of us keep ourselves going in life. But the extent to which it is used to justify reprehensible situations and behaviors is emphasized in the fact that Josh Duggar keeps doing the most terrible things to people who love him and still keeps getting welcomed back into his family's home, given trust and support. This is wrong. What Josh has done is wrong. He literally doesn't see his sister's wife or the small children he watched on his computer as human beings with a feeling, beating heart. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Anna, who literally believes that she deserves to suffer and needs to suffer in order to move closest to God and be the best Christian she can be. What a terrible pairing for Anna. So why does IBLP say that suffering happens, and where did it come from in the first place? Well, IBLP taught Anna when she was a very little girl that suffering is not something God chose for man, but rather a choice which man made for himself because of the initial sin committed by Adam and Eve. And we all know who was responsible for that sin. Christianity teaches us that Adam and Eve chose to willfully disobey God's commandment not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The consequences of their sin did not just impact them, it impacted everything and everyone that came after them. IBLP tells a woman like Anna that God's ultimate desire is that all mankind would be saved in Jesus Christ. God is working for Anna's good even when she can't see it or feel it. One of the ways he does this is by using the difficulties in her life to humble a sinner and bring them to his light. This is how Anna has been taught to respond to the suffering Josh or God or whoever brings into her life. She needs to get right with the Lord by confessing her sin and wrong to him. Only then she will receive God's forgiveness and finally have his power abiding within her. It is then that she can begin to properly respond to the suffering. A good example, according to the IBLP, can be found in the life of Joseph. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. Joseph's response to his brothers after having experienced years of suffering and pain in slavery at the hand of the Egyptians was to forgive them. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. So the story of Joseph gets turned into this idea that Joseph was made to suffer so that he could save other people and that he would grow and learn through everything that happened to him. Anna's faith is now telling her she must ask herself the following questions. How can this situation with Josh help me understand more about Christ? IBLP teaches Anna that Jesus showed her the right way to respond to suffering. In your hard circumstances or tragedy or heartbreaking disappointment, you must respond as Jesus did. Is this a martyr complex, anyone? And only through suffering can Anna really know Jesus. Anna must also realize that God hates pride, and she must ask herself, how can God use this situation to produce humility in me? What character qualities can God develop in me through this situation with my husband? Can I learn patience? What can the situation teach me about the need for alertness? Like it's on her to be more alert about what's going on with Josh and who's around them. Could this suffering motivate me to express gratefulness for things I've taken for granted? Can I develop more compassion for others because of this experience? And lastly, and I think everyone means this more for Josh, is this a preparation for future leadership? So Anna and Josh may be thinking Josh is being punished in this way because he's going to grow from it, and he's being prepared for a greater future for both of them. Jim Bob is likely also ministering to Anna about how the suffering will ultimately benefit her. He will tell her that she needs to avoid the trap of bitterness. She should sit down and compile a list of benefits that God wants to bring through this suffering. She should ask God to show her ways that He wants to redeem her. I've heard many people say that Anna is acting as a martyr in this situation with Josh. One definition I found for martyr is constant sufferer. Sadly, I think this rings true for Anna. In the only paradigm she's ever understood about the world, her husband, her father, his father, and God are in charge of her life. And they're all telling her she's just a woman who needs to stay home, take care of her kids, and pray for her husband. Pray hard and never give up. God is making you suffer now, Anna, because He has a bigger, greater plan for you and Josh someday in some way. Anna has to believe that because as of right now, everything has been taken away from her. Her husband, her big, beautiful, forever home, her special place as the wife of a golden child in the Fundy world. It's all come crumbling down. She's got to be sad and suffering and praying in a closet in the warehouse on the Duggars' property. Hi friends, I just wanted to add on at the end that the picture of Anna I used at the very beginning of this video always makes me feel so sad and cry a little bit myself. The picture is, I believe it's a still from Counting On when Anna was talking about Josh having cheated on her. And I really think of Anna like this, by herself, alone in the warehouse on the Duggar property. And it causes me to really feel a lot of sympathy for her and the situation that she's going through. I continue to hope that something positive does come out of this for her.